I love this question, and I would be so keen to hear other people's opinions on it too. But yeah, thank you, Naomi. It's such a good question. So I think it's less to do with her having this realization that he is still into her, and more her realizing, fuck it to hell, he still can affect me this way. Because I think for both of them, like, Conrad gets, by Jeremiah shivers, Conrad is like, oh, he's so weird that he's still into her 4 years ago, for 4 years. And it's like, have none of you, like, pined for someone? Or it's just this idea of, like, out of sight, out of mind. And for both of them, but to different levels. And so I can understand, well, I see her as being like, no, Conrad, you didn't want me anymore. I had put, and also she didn't make that choice when she did not make that choice at the end of season 2. It's not a choice between whether or not she's going to be with Conrad or Jeremiah, because I think she had picked Jeremiah. It's cementing the idea of, oh yeah, he's done. He's not fighting for me. He doesn't want me. Done. And like, he gives back this necklace. So everything is being cemented. And that had been sort of established throughout season 2. So her saying, like, if I went back to Conrad, it would destroy me. If I had a love again like Conrad's, I don't know if I would survive it. And throughout season 2, she's getting confirmations, like the funeral confirmed from him, like, no, it was a mistake. When she comes back to Cousins, like, doesn't want to look at her, like, yep, he's still like, no, I did the worst thing I could ever do to this person. And then, yeah, on the beach, I thought we loved each other. We did, right? In the past, done, kind of thing. So these confirmation. And so at the end of season 2 is just cement. It's not about her making that decision. It's cementing, like, why he was no longer a decision. And so I think for her, it's not, he still has feelings for me, but oh, fuck it to hell. He still has this effect on me. Whereas I thought 4 years had gone by, I had made sure, not done with Conrad, but no, we're not done with Conrad. And so I don't think yet she's aware, and which just makes this whole thing so sad, that he does, well, actually, no, I take that back. I was going to say she's not at all aware that he still has feelings for her. I don't think at all. I think she is aware on some level, but is still kind of pushing that down. But I do think this was more about her realizing he still has this effect on me, and being rattled by that, but not yet getting to the place of, oh, and he still has feelings for me and I still have feelings for him, where, like, it's in the same ballpark, but not the specificity of, I still love him, if that makes any sense. And so I think, as you asked me, like, I think it's the rest of this comment is that going to happen, or is it going to be in that beach confession, that she finally, like, hears from him, I still love you, and it's like that. And I think it's still, well, kind of will still be that, kind of, because I think, and I said in one of my other videos, she is going to start being more and more switched on, and more, because now this is like reawoken to her Conrad heart. She's going to be like, fucking hell. And I think we will see her have a dream about Conrad. We will see her start to get more orientated, not back to Conrad, but just this idea of like, oh man, I thought that I was done. I thought I had put Conrad in a box, but I cannot put him in a box. And then when she gets his beach confession, that is why she's so mad and so upset, because it's like similar to I thought you knew. She's going, if I had known, like, why didn't you tell me? And like, also, why are you telling me now? And like, everything that's happened between us, you're telling me now that you still love me, when we were both feeling this way but not saying it. And oh my God, and just the questioning and the doubt and assuming. And so I think we need to still have her explosion be from a place of like, now you're telling me, now you're being crystal fucking clear about it. And so yeah, so I think this was more about her internal, oh, he still fucking can affect me this way. And I think that's also why they get back to the house, she goes right to the doorway, needs that fresh air. But then there's also like, but I want to be around him. Now that my Conrad card is like, Conrad, that's a hard word to phrase to say. Conrad's heart is open. It's like, oh, being around him is so nice. Especially when he's like this. And again, she's still orientating herself to this grown version of him, because they were so separated for 4 years. But yeah, I'd be so keen to hear other people's opinions about this and what was happening for her in the peach thing. The other reason why I don't think we're supposed to, it's about sort of her realizing that he still has feelings for her, is because this wasn't planned from Jenny, that we were supposed to get this insight. She only did it because of the way Lola played it. So we weren't meant to be like, oh, she still has feelings for Conrad. It was just like seeing how viscerally she's affected by him. And so, yeah, I think we're not supposed to be pointedly there yet, where she's like, oh, I still have feelings for him, but also he has feelings for me. Like, I think we're still kind of in denial. Not denial, because denial makes it seem like, well, maybe it is a little bit denial. I don't know. It bugs me when I see, like, Belly's in denial. Because, like, if she's in denial, he led her to that denial. You know what I mean? So I think they're both accountable to that deniability. All right, I gotta shut up, because I'm just gonna keep going on and on. But yeah, I would love to hear what other people think.
Let's talk about episode 5, because at this point, we're about halfway through the season, and the show has told us 3 very specific things about Conrad's love for Belly. Why he loves her, how he loves her, and most importantly, what differentiates his love from that of Jeremiah. Understanding these 3 things positions us for how we'll see the rest of the season, and it also helps us understand the complexities of these characters' internal conflict. By the way, this is season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty from the perspective of a former English teacher. So the first thing we learn is the why. Why does Conrad love Belly so much? What makes her so special to him that his love for her hasn't changed even with time and distance? I believe Jenny Han is actually pointing to something called agape love, but we'll get to that later. For now, Conrad's love for Belly is so strong because his romantic love for her sits on a foundation of familial love. This is the kind of love that exists between family members or people who are so close that they're like family. It's a deep emotional bond that's defined by a strong sense of loyalty and support. This is why we see Conrad willingly sacrifice himself to help Belly and to see her happy. In a flashback to their childhood when all the kids went bike riding, Conrad chose to stay behind and gave up his own bike just to help Belly ride off on her own. And this is just one more example on top of others that we've already seen where a younger Conrad willingly gave up his own fun to help Belly. To be clear, the show is not romanticizing children. This was established in season 1 when Conrad said to Cleveland about Belly that we grew up together, so I've always thought of her as this little kid, but now she's not. So the looks of connection we see between young Conrad and Belly is to show us that he had a strong familial connection to her even before he developed any romantic feelings. Conrad already loved Belly before he fell in love with her. Familial love is also a love that's not really by choice, but rather from a natural sense of duty. This is why Conrad can think to himself, theoretically, it's not my job to help her anymore. But he just can't stop himself from helping her when she needs it. To Conrad, loving Belly is not a choice he can make or break. He's naturally compelled to do so out of his devotion to her, and his romantic feelings for her have only deepened that bond. By contrast, Jeremiah never had the foundation of a deep familial bond with Belly. We know they were best friends, we know he loves and cares for her, but their bond was more that of close peers before he developed any romantic feelings. It's important to know that most marriages and relationships happen this way. You meet someone or you have a friend for whom you develop romantic attraction, and over time, as you grow and nurture that relationship, those feelings can evolve into a much deeper love, like familial love. All this to say, the show makes it clear that Jeremiah's love for Belly is genuine and real, but it simply hasn't matured into a deeper love yet. And this brings us to the second thing we learn about Conrad's love for Belly, how he loves her. For Conrad, loving Belly is an action, while for Jeremiah, loving Belly is a feeling. This is a direct result of the difference in the nature of their love for her. Because Conrad has that deep sense of familial love for Belly, we see him readily make sacrifices for her, even when there's nothing to gain for himself. We see this in their childhood when he gave up his bike for her, and we see it now in adulthood when Conrad is denying his own feelings and going against his own wishes to help Belly plan a wedding that he doesn't want to see happen, but he's doing it simply because he believes that's the happiness that she wants. Conrad's love for Belly is selfless in that it's beyond just wanting to be with her, because he's willing to give up being with her if it means she can be happy. We see this when Conrad revealed that he pushed Belly away during his mom's cancer, not because he didn't want to stay close and connected, but that it was a choice he made to protect her from the devastation of knowing that Susanna was going to die. And now, Conrad is giving up ever having a chance with Belly, yes, out of a sense of duty to his brother and his mom, but also because he believes that Belly is happier with Jeremiah. Conrad's inner dialogue said, Jeremiah can give her all the things I can't. She deserves that. She deserves the world. So above all things, above himself, Conrad just wants the best for Belly. His love for her is unconditional and action-based. In contrast, Jeremiah's love for Belly is conditional and emotion-based. To be fair, that is the nature of romantic love, which can grow into something deeper over time, but as it is, Jeremiah's love for Belly is not there yet. It's still very much based on how he feels and on the premise of those feelings being reciprocated. We see it in the way Jeremiah expressed his love for Belly to Laurel, saying, Belly is my person and I'm hers. When my mom died, I felt like I wouldn't be anyone's person again. And in the middle of everything falling apart, Belly picked me. And I've been the luckiest guy in the world for the last 4 years. Jeremiah's love for Belly is mainly based on how she makes him feel. He has a strong sense of belonging and security with her because she makes him feel loved, cherished, and chosen. And that's not a bad thing. It's a valid part of loving someone. It's how many people feel with their partners. But because this love hasn't matured into something deeper, it's why Jeremiah's dynamic with Belly comes across as self-centered and conditional. We repeatedly see a kind of tit-for-tat approach from him where he insists on, what about what I want? What about my one thing for the wedding? Are my needs and wants important? Because the limit of romantic love is that it's based on reciprocity, meaning how much love and affection is being reciprocated. When two people in a relationship feel mutually loved and valued, that's how romantic feelings grow. But if one person feels like things are one-sided, it can breed resentment and the relationship will break down. This is actually why Jeremiah was able to hook up with Lacey so soon after he thought he and Belly broke up. It's not because he's a cheater, it's not because he never loved Belly, it's because he believed his love for her was never reciprocated. That's actually a whole other conversation we need to have because I think the character of Jeremiah is very often misunderstood. But for now, this is how Jeremiah differs from Conrad. Conrad's love for Belly is unconditional and not dependent on whether it's reciprocated. That's why his feelings for her haven't changed even though she loves someone else. That's why he's not interested in being with other women even though there's plenty of opportunity. Conrad loves Belly even if she doesn't love him back, even if there's nothing for him to gain, because he simply loves her for her. And this brings us to the third thing that really sets Conrad's love for Belly apart from that of Jeremiah. In fact, the show tells us no one loves Belly the way Conrad loves her. But I'm going to run out of time, so I'll do a part 2. No one loves Belly the way Conrad loves Belly because only Conrad fully knows her. This is one of 3 things that the show tells us about Conrad's love for Belly by the end of episode 5. In part 1 of this video, we looked at why he loves her and how he loves her. Now in part 2, let's look at what makes Conrad's love for Belly so special and so different from that of Jeremiah. By the way, this is season 3 of The Summer I Turned Pretty from the perspective of a former English teacher. So the show introduced a concept in episode 4 when Belly broke down crying with memories of her mom. Belly said that when her mom surprised her with the dress that she wanted for the deb ball, she had never felt more known and more loved. This idea of being known and loved is a concept that was written about by the theologian Timothy Keller. He said, "To be loved but not known is comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved is a lot like being loved by God. It is what we need more than anything." So to be loved but not known is what Belly has with Jeremiah. We see this in the way Jeremiah doesn't know the reality and the depth of Belly's feelings. He doesn't seem to notice the extent of her internal struggles, sadness, or frustration because he's usually more focused on meeting his own needs and wants. To be known and not loved is Conrad's greatest fear. We know this from his inner dialogue before he tells Belly about going to therapy and getting fired from his job, saying, "For as long as I've known her, I've struggled with looking weak in front of Belly." Conrad had put up all these walls around himself in order to be strong to take care of the people that he loves, and he has such a fear of failing and disappointing them. But how can he be truly loved if he's not even fully known? So Conrad opening up to Belly now is him allowing himself to be known by her, and he's finding that she's already embraced him with all his imperfections. And finally, we can see that to be fully known and truly loved is the kind of love that Conrad has for Belly. The show gives us all these examples of Conrad really knowing her. He noticed when she wore her hair differently or wore heels because he knew that's not her norm. He left out cereal and fruit because he knew she often resorts to eating junk food. And he turned the car around to get peaches because he knew that's what she would have really liked. And Conrad fully knows Belly not just in these mundane details, but also in meaningful ways. Conrad is the only one who knows how truly heartbroken Belly is over her family's lack of support for her wedding. He's the only one who knows how truly overwhelmed and disappointed she was when Jeremiah couldn't be there to help with the wedding planning. And in these moments of fully knowing her, Conrad has chosen again and again to love Belly by helping and supporting her, even to his own detriment. And this brings up something I mentioned in part 1, something called agape love. Agape is a Greek term used to describe the highest form of love, a love that is unconditional, sacrificial, and selfless. With everything we talked about in part 1 and now here in part 2, what's clear is that the show is telling us Conrad's love for Belly is the highest form of love. He loves her unconditionally, sacrificially, and selflessly. With Conrad, Belly is fully known and truly loved. And we see all the ways in which this manifests. When you love someone this deeply, loving them for everything they are, for simply being who they are, then even the mundane is magical. This is why in this entire episode from Conrad's point of view, Belly looks so glowing and dreamy. His perspective of her is so romantic and always beautifully framed. But she's really just doing ordinary things, shopping at Michael's, looking out the back door, eating a peach. And the significance of the peach scene is more than just the sensuality of it. What we see here is that Conrad loves Belly just for being her. In this moment, there's no pretense. She's not self-conscious. She's completely in the moment, just being herself, doing something as ordinary as enjoying a peach, juice running down her chin and all. There's something very pure here, and the intimacy of Conrad knowing her like this. When it comes to Conrad, this moment encapsulates his love for Belly. He delights in her, he's enthralled by her, and he takes joy in all that she is. To Conrad, everything that is ordinary, he finds extraordinary in Belly. So this is how the show has positioned us for the second half of the season. We know Conrad's love for Belly is unconditional and selfless. We know he's trying to make peace with the fact that Belly is marrying Jeremiah only because he believes that she's happy and that Jeremiah can give her all the things that he can't, that Jeremiah can love Belly the way she deserves. But what happens when Conrad begins to witness the ways in which Jeremiah's love for Belly is actually conditional and rather self-centered? What happens when Conrad begins to realize that Jeremiah may not be able to love Belly the way she deserves? What happens then when Conrad's love for Belly, a love that compels him to protect her and take care of her like it's his duty, becomes directly at odds with his other duty to his brother and his mom? These are the complexities of Conrad's inner conflict. What would you do when all your options come with a price?
So everyone that watches The Summer I Turned Pretty knows the massive impact that Audrey Hepburn's Sabrina has had on the show. There's been so many parallels, and it's been pointed out by Jenny and Lola just how influential the movie has been to the series and how it's basically foreshadowed the entire thing. Well, I love the parallel from last episode where Belly is opening up kind of like the back doors to the beach house, and just kind of like the framing and where she's leaning, and you just see like the back of her head. Well, there's a very similar one in Sabrina when she's in Paris and she opens up kind of like the double doors and she's looking out into Paris and reflecting on the past few years of her life and like how beneficial being in Paris has been to her. And I would love, and I really do think we're gonna get this, some sort of like a double parallel of Belly doing the same thing when she goes to Paris. And because at this point she's never got to experience that, she's never got to be anywhere else other than Cousins Beach, which in her own way, Cousins Beach has been just as impactful on her life than I think Paris could be an even bigger impact on her life in the most positive way. Because I've always said this, how much she needs to venture out, she needs to become her own person, and I know that Paris is going to help her do that. So I would love to see, I loved this parallel because I was watching Sabrina the other day and I'm seeing this scene and I'm like, wait, why do I recognize this so much? And I was talking to my friend Jess, shout out Jess, I love you. And we were both just kind of talking about it, and I'm like, there's so much of a parallel here that people do not realize. And it would be so amazing if we got like a very similar, almost like we could do a 3-way parallel with that scene in the future, and possibly like Conrad being with her and her feeling like very whole at the end of the day. I don't know, but I loved seeing this, because just as Paris is going to be influential for her life, and it was for Sabrina's, Cousins Beach is also just as important to her and has brought her so much joy throughout her entire life.
I feel like the writers of The Summer I Turned Pretty are trying to communicate that one of the biggest barriers to growth for Jeremiah and Belly is that they have a deep fear of change. I think this is one of the biggest factors when it comes to why it seems like their growth is stunted this season. And I believe this is a narrative that they have been planning all along, because I found something in season 1 that I think is just a really fun Easter egg. If that's all you care about, I'll put a timestamp in the caption of where I talk about that in this video. Okay, but let's get into why I think this. We're gonna start with this scene. The slow dance at the frat party. I think what they talk about here is really telling. Jeremiah tells Belly that he never wants her to cut her hair. And she says, but if I never cut my hair, I'm gonna look like a witch. But then she promises not to cut her hair as long as he promises never to grow a beard. And I think what they're trying to show us here is that these two do not want the other to change. It might seem like a surface level conversation, but I think the meaning behind it goes a lot deeper. Which brings me to this scene. Belly tells Jeremiah that now that they're engaged, things have changed and there's no way she's going to Paris. And he expresses that he is relieved by this. Also reminds me of another scene. This scene, but I'm referring to the whole conversation pre-breakup. Although I totally back Belly in being irritated that he didn't even tell her about Cabo, Belly also tells him that she thought he would just go to Cousins and spend time with his dad. Something that he just did. Something that they always do. Cousins is comfortable. Cousins is safe. Cabo, however, could bring about new experiences for Jeremiah. Because of the way their conversation plays out, it does. On a kind of deeper level, this represents Belly's fear of Jeremiah experiencing new things, new people, things that are outside of what they know, what they feel is safe. I think these two situations kind of parallel each other in some ways. They're both rooted in the fact they don't want the other person to experience things without the other, which again, I think comes from a deep root of fear of change. Because of this, these two are in a relationship that has completely stunted them both. Because they're terrified of change, they can't grow. I think because of this, we're seeing them regress a little bit, which brings me to this scene in season 1. This is why I think this has been the narrative the whole time. Duh, because the books have been out, but stay with me. So when Cameron talks about how he wants to study marine biology, and he mentions a jellyfish that has Benjamin Button's disease, I cannot help but think it is foreshadowing for the jellyfish relationship. Hello? I don't think Jenny Hunt sleeps. Anyway, I think that's a fun little Easter egg. Something else I think is interesting in season 1 is a conversation between Susanna and Jeremiah about change. A sweet little exchange between them when Susanna is painting Jeremiah as a Greek god. She's asking him how his summer is, and he says that it feels a little bit different. What she says I think is really important here. She says summer's the same. We're the ones who are changing. And then she playfully says, except you. I don't ever want you to change. I don't know if this is something that Jeremiah has buried deep into his subconscious, or if this is just a hint to us as the audience. It is clear that Susanna's death flipped all of their lives upside down. I truly think that Jeremiah and Belly walked away from that, clinging to each other because it felt safe in a time of so many unknowns. They're terrified for anything else in their lives to change. See that it's not healthy for them. This fear has kept them stunted and stuck. Unlike Conrad, who has had no choice to surrender to change. Because of this, we have seen much needed growth from him, and a huge character arc from the audience perspective. In the car with Belly, he talks about watching the sun set from the west instead of the east, how that made him feel like anything was possible. Change has given him the confidence, the maturity, the growth that he needed. I don't think this is an intentional jab at Belly, but I do think it's interesting. The one thing he notices that has changed with her is that she now wears high heels. Belly has not experienced a deep, life-changing, soul-searching season of growth yet. One thing that's been pointed out has changed with her is something very surface level. I think this is a direct result of the relationship she's been in for the last 4 years. Her fear of change has kept the other from growing, playing, exploring in the world, and finding themselves. I think at this point, these two are going to have to part ways for that to happen. I think Belly's deep fear of change was confirmed in this scene with the song choice. She's been afraid of changing. She's built her life not just around Jeremiah, but around the Fishers, around the Cousins' house. And I think she's deeply afraid that if anything changes, if she changes, if she grows out of this relationship with Jeremiah, she's gonna lose it all. Let me know what you guys think.
This scene from The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3, Episode 5 tells us everything we need to know about Jeremiah and Belly's dynamic. Let's get into it. Hey, The Summer I Turned Pretty fans, it's time to clock in. If you don't know me, my name is Michaela, and I make videos about all things The Summer I Turned Pretty, and if you're as obsessed as I am, I hope you follow me for more The Summer I Turned Pretty content. Let's get into why this scene is so important to Belly and Jeremiah's dynamic.
too slow. Guys, let's just wait for her for a minute, okay? No, come on, Carter. See ya.
In this one scene, this entire scenario summarizes the entirety of season 3. This is young Jeremiah. He says, she's too slow. Come on, Conrad. And then Steven's like, yeah, come on. And then young Jeremiah goes, she's too slow. Does this remind you of any other scenario that's happening in season 3 that they're trying to rush? If you said the engagement, I think you would be right. I think that this is foreshadowing how the entire timeline of the engagement is just too rushed. Why is it so rushed? Like, can't they wait? Like, Laurel's asking them, what is going on? What's the rush? It's because Jeremiah is trying to get Belly to the finish line because he wants to be able to call her his own. And I do think they love each other, and I don't think that's a question, but I do think that potentially there's ulterior motives with him asking. I think he's trying to make himself feel better because of the whole Lacey situation. I also think that potentially the competition aspect with Conrad could be playing a part. I think that Jeremiah knows once Belly and Conrad see each other again that it's not going to be good for him. So I think this little bike scene is an amazing foreshadowing to this entire situation and scenario in the Summer I Turned Pretty season 3. What do y'all think?
I know I sound like a broken record, but I try so hard. I've never really seen many Belly and Jeremiah edits, although I know there are a lot out there. But I try and I try and I try to see the chemistry, and it is lost on me. It's just, nothing's there. And actually it's kind of upsetting me. It is upsetting me because, like I've said to y'all before, there are love triangles where I have a preference, but I can still see the chemistry in the other couple. Nothing there. Nothing there for me. I don't believe you, Belly. I don't believe you like him. Obviously she loves him. Obviously she does. But I'm just saying, I don't. It's just, And then on the other hand, you see Belly and Conrad. It's just like, it's just, you can taste it. You know what I mean? I'm trying so hard. Maybe I just need to like watch a bunch of them back to back and try and, I don't know if that'll help, but I want to feel it, you know, just in case for some reason they pull 180 and it is Belly and Jeremiah at the end. It's probably not. It's not. Come on. I'm just saying though, I want to see what y'all are seeing, and I know you're gonna be in my comments. All you Team Jared goes, that's how I am with Belly and Conrad. It's like, okay, I don't see how you can't see it, but I mean, you feel the same way. But I'm just saying, like, you're wrong.
It immediately stuck out to me in this scene that the numbers 96 and 101 were used as aisle markers. And if you've ever been to a store, very rarely do you have aisle numbers that large. After doing some light digging, it does not appear that those are real aisle markers for the store Michaels. And so because of that, I would assume that those were purposely placed and those numbers were chosen specifically. So Belly and Conrad are walking down aisle 96. In this scene, this is the flowers and the vases. So they are currently traveling down aisle 96. So if we look at the aisle they're on, 96, what does that mean in numerology? So 9 means endings, wisdom, compassion, universal love, wrap up, number before a new cycle begins. 6, nurturing, harmony, responsibility, love. And so when you combine those two numbers, it often points to a phase where you're called to lovingly release something or someone for the greater good. It's not a bad thing. It's an ending done out of care. You're sacrificing. This sounds a lot like Conrad's mindset right now as he's kind of releasing Belly and coming to terms with her marrying Jeremiah and having to let her go. So then we travel over into the corner in the top left corner of this picture is the sign for 101. It is a couple aisles over, right? They are not quite going down 101 yet, but it is definitely in the foreground. So it's kind of depicted as this is another aisle that they could travel down in the future. 101 is in the core number of 2, 1 plus 0 plus 1 is balance, harmony, partnership. When you frame the 101s as like a mirrored image, it creates independence, new beginnings, self-leadership. The 0 is infinite potential, spiritual connection, a pause or space that amplifies the numbers beside it. So overall, The number 101 symbolizes two strong individuals, the ones, connected through infinite possibility, the zero. It's like a fresh start in a relationship, a mirrored connection, or the beginning of a new cycle where both people have grown into their own before coming together. Which sounds a lot like the book ending, doesn't it? Oh, Jenny Han and your little Easter eggs.
Okay, this scene is obviously devastating. And I realized, like, I just watched it again for the first time, and I realized she starts to sing to him, like, to comfort him, as if, like, probably what she would do when he was a baby. Like, I don't know, I can't figure out what song she is singing. If anybody can figure it out, like, you win. But, like, you can see her start to sing. Or maybe she's telling him a poem, but I think it is, like, she's singing him a lullaby, which would make a lot of sense, and, like, that he's crying, and, like, needs to be comforted. But there's also another part, like, when he goes on to tell us about the motel room, and, like, that he didn't sleep, you can see that he's crying, and it just kills me, like, this whole thing, like, could have been avoided, and, like, obviously with Susanna's death, and also Conrad thinking that's what he needed to do, and oh gosh, it's just all so sad and tragic. It just kills me. But yeah, that detail of her singing to him, when I noticed that, oh, devastating. And then yeah, the detail of him crying, I just think is, oh. Like, the fact that he's crying there, I mean, you can't see, I'm so sorry.
What I said earlier, I didn't mean it.
Like, you have this moment, and then later she goes to sleep, but he's awake all night. Oh, and it's so bad, because then he takes it back.
That night in the motel, I couldn't sleep.
Like, if you look close enough, you can see there's, like, a tear that, like, rolls down his cheek.
The promise I made to my mom to always take care of Jerry.
It's so...
I just wanted to know that whatever I said, I didn't mean it.
Sad. And, like, obviously, like, devastating for her, too. And yes, this all could have been avoided for multiple reasons. And I was going to say something else, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway. Oh, God, it's just all so sad. Okay, I love this comment, Michaela, and I want to talk about it. So I think rationally, 100%. Rationally, you know, in the rational state of mind, Belly absolutely would never do it, and he absolutely would never do it. But I think this episode, and I even think, you know, we've seen things that Belly gets judged and shamed for, like the funeral scene, the prom scene. These two, and this whole episode, cannot be rational with one another. Rationality, I think, goes out the window. As much as, you know, he wants to recall this idea of, like, promises that he made to Susanna on her deathbed, reiterating to himself, hey, you know, you can't give her all these things, which is ironic because the whole episode, he's giving her all the things that she's needing and wanting. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so he, as much as he's gonna say this and maybe have more of a resolve, so I get a little bit cold with her, and then she's gonna be really a bit taken aback. So what I think is gonna happen is he's gonna get his shit together a little bit, whereas she is now more and more rattled. So she is going to be in a place where he was at the beginning of this episode, if that makes any sense. And again, I don't think she would ever rationally cheat, but I just think these two can be so spellbound by one another and don't act rationally because of how they feel. And so, yeah, so I do wonder if, like, the more they're around, I think, I have a feeling maybe there'll be some separation between them in the next episode, because I think she's established she's going to go back with Jeremiah for a couple days. So I think that there'll be like a cooling off period between them, and they just won't see each other for a couple days. So that will help. But I think, similar to what I said in the other video, like, the train has left the station. And again, these two, they can be, you know, they can say to themselves, they could try to, you know, explain to themselves, like, no, you don't feel this way. Like, no, this is what you said to your mum. And yet when they're around one another, goes right out the window. I mean, the reason why I've never been, like, pro-cheating is because it doesn't allow, like, any nuance for, like, why, or, like, what is happening there. And it's not like these two are willingly cheating, whereas I think you can make the case Jeremiah was willingly cheating. which is different. Like, the intent is completely different, whereas these two don't have the intent to cheat, but it's just because, again, they're like in this elixir of one another. So yeah, what I have a feeling is going to happen is he's going to be like, no, remember, like, no, this is, that you're done. Like, no, she's better with Jeremiah. What you thought was happening isn't happening, because again, he is not aware that she's making this face. So he is not going to be aware that she's now coming more to the, like I was saying before, like, she's now going to be more of in a rattled kind of place that he was kind of at the beginning, if that makes any, beginning of this episode, if that makes any sense. And I was going to say something else, but I can't remember. But yeah, I think the more you put them around one another, especially alone, and the more, again, with the surf scene, it's not like they're looking to be close with one another. It sort of just happens that intimacy is within her trying to help him. And again, they're so spellbound by one another. All rationality just goes out the window. And so when they're close to one another, it's like, fucking hell. So that's why I think they may do more than kiss, or it's gonna get real fucking close, way closer maybe. I mean, again, I think it's pretty clear in the book, but I think it's clear in the book? Yeah, I just think they're gonna make it like, because in the peach scene, I think you can maybe make the case, oh, maybe no, they wouldn't have kissed, but I think it's for the surf scene, there'll be no doubt about it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just rambling on at this point. So I think, yeah, rationally, neither of them would do it, but they just cannot be rational with one another. Well, not yet anyway, I should say. Yeah, not yet, but I totally see where you're coming from, though. Totally see where you're coming from. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what the ramifications of this whole thing is, you know what I mean, in the next episode. And yeah, like I said, I have a feeling, which will be such a letdown going from this episode to then the next episode, I actually have a feeling they won't be around each other a lot. And so he'll be like, right, I'm convinced, like, no, I'm like, remember, like, she is your brother's girl, like, trying to convince himself. And she too is like, see, I'm with Jeremiah, this is great. But then either she'll have a dream about Conrad, or maybe yeah, she'll be like thinking about what happened between them. And so it will just start again where, like, we're on the train. If that makes any sense. Anyway, yeah.
There have only been 4 songs that have played in primarily solo Belly moments when she's kind of in her own head. And I think that's telling the story of her inner monologue, since we're not getting very many of them at all throughout this season. You're Losing Me was an interesting choice to play in this moment, because it is about a kind of a slow burn breakup. When you're in a long-term relationship, it's slowly disintegrating over time. You feel like your partner is not contributing to the emotional support that you need in the relationship, and you're doing all of these things to be their emotional support, right? There's a lyric in the song that says, "You have just dealt the final blow," meaning that something happened, but there was a bunch of other little blows that were happening prior, right? I think this is supposed to be telling the audience that to Belly, this was kind of something that she can't move past. She's been able to move past other things that maybe had her unsure about Jeremiah and her future with him, maybe things that she felt she wasn't getting in that relationship, into all this work that she's done to kind of move past that and continue to have this relationship with him. She feels like, out of all these things I've given you, right, now you go and do this. And the second thing that we're supposed to take away from this as the audience is that we're about to lose Belly. Her heart is not starting anymore. Like, she is going to be shifting into a different type of person than we're used to seeing her. The next song we get is I Wish I Hated You by Ariana Grande, which is, you know, in the aftermath of a breakup, not really hating someone. They weren't the worst person. They didn't do terrible things to you, and that would make it easier to move on from. And when you think about the lyrics that are playing while this scene is going on, I tried to rewrite our life. I rearranged my memories. Belly has tried to really put Jeremiah into this like soulmate role, and she's also rearranged the memories of her and Conrad and kind of romanticized this friends to lovers that her and Jeremiah are. And she definitely respects and loves Jeremiah. There's no doubt in my mind she loves Jeremiah. So she she does wish that she hated him, because everything would be easier if she could just say, I don't care at all about Jeremiah. I don't care about breaking his heart. I don't care about him being upset that I've abandoned him, right? But the most telling part of this lyric and this song in general for me has always been, our shadows dance in a parallel plane. That essentially is two people who are incompatible, who are not intersecting in life. They just couldn't make it work because they wanted different things, and that's ultimately what broke them up. And so this song playing is kind of like Belly reflecting on all these things that she's done in this relationship, but no matter what, she still was left with him hurting her. And after all this work, it's like, you know, we were just never compatible anyways, and I wish I could just hate you to move on. When Jenny Han decided to play Please, Please, Please over this scene where Belly is getting ready for the garden ceremony to announce her engagement to Jeremiah, it changed the meaning completely from the book. It is no longer about Conrad. It is 100% about her relationship with Jeremiah. The entirety of this song is trying to convince yourself that the person that you want to be with, the person that you love, is not all the things that you maybe think subconsciously they are, or other people tell you that they are, right? So she's saying here while she's getting ready, I know I have good judgment. I know I have good taste. It's funny that only I feel that way. So like other people in her life potentially don't agree that she has good judgment and that she has good taste when it comes to her wanting to marry Jeremiah or maybe just be with Jeremiah. And she promises everybody else that like, this is my person. This is who I want to be with. And she's doubting that he's going to live up to that expectations. She says, don't embarrass me, you know, like don't prove everybody right. Don't prove I'm right. Don't be the unserious person that everyone always says you are, right? I don't think we talk enough about Landslide because I feel like there's a lot of implications of how Belly was really feeling about not only just her mom and her lack of support from her mom and the things that her mom has said to her about her, you know, doing her own adventures and waiting to settle down, but also her vulnerability level with Jeremiah. Because she waited until he left to really have this emotional moment with herself. And the last thing he had said to her was that he didn't really want her to go to Paris too. So she's coming in with all of those thoughts, thinking about what her mom has told her, right? I want you to have adventures. I want you to have lots of lovers. I want you to live your own life and not lose yourself. And so she's thinking about all of that while she's thinking about her mom and how she wishes she had her support. And Landslide is about a big change in your life. You've built your life around something else. In Belly's case, Jeremiah, she's put a lot of stake, 4 years into this relationship and a lifetime of friendship. And she's thinking about Paris and she's thinking about, you know, what her future looks like, and making that change is really scary. And it was really, scary for Stevie Nicks to think about leaving Fleetwood Mac when she wrote the song. And a part of this song that doesn't play exactly in the scene is, you know, Mirror in the Sky, what is love? Like, what does it mean to really be in love with somebody and want to take that step? I think Belly's thinking about that during this song when she's also thinking about the changes in her life, whether that is, you know, potentially getting married to Jeremiah or potentially not. But I don't think Belly in this scene is very confident in herself to make this decision and know that it's the right one to make. So I'll be really interested to see what song plays next over a kind of solo Belly moment, or if we start to see some of her inner monologue come back. But all 4 of those songs definitely have themes of like insecurities, uncertainties as it pertains to the relationship that you're in, and being afraid of moving on and being afraid of, you know, what the aftermath of the breakup looks like. And so I think we can, in place of not having inner monologue, kind of think about all 4 of those songs to get an idea of where Belly's headspace is at.
You guys think we'll get more of Conrad's POV and narration this season? We've already gotten it in a couple of different places this season, but there's one thing that really stood out to me that makes me think that it's not done yet. I remember last season when we got Jeremiah's narration, the very beginning of the episode when it says previously on The Summer I Turned Pretty, it was in Jeremiah's voice instead of Belly's.
Previously on The Summer I Turned Pretty.
I specifically remember that instance because we had only ever heard Belly's narration up to that point, and hearing Jeremiah's voice instead was kind of shocking. So since I was expecting this episode to be Conrad's point of view, I was waiting to hear his voice introduced previously on The Summer I Turned Pretty. But it was actually just Belly's voice still.
Previously on The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Really don't know if that matters at all, but it really stood out to me, and I'm wondering if it's a little clue that we're not done with his point of view yet. This season, we've already seen that Conrad has the power to trigger a flashback. In the scene with Agnes in the first episode, he's telling her about the last time that he saw Belly and Jeremiah together, and then it triggers this flashback of him 4 years ago at the 4th of July. We also saw that when Belly was texting Conrad at the hospital, it triggered her to have the flashback of Christmas 2.0. And we heard the Mystery of Love song playing. And it showed Conrad listening to the exact same song that was playing over the Christmas flashback. So I think we were kind of getting a dual point of view because Conrad and Belly were thinking about the same thing at the exact same time. Another thing that I thought was interesting was this little scene when they first saw each other when Belly and Jeremiah got to the cousin's house and Conrad was about to go out for a run. He looked at Belly laying on the couch and he flashed in his mind to Belly opening the door at Christmas. And then Belly looked at him over by the door, and then she flashed to him opening the door at Christmas saying her name. I think they're kind of showing us that they're thinking about the same things at the same time. And then we got his narration in episode 4 when Belly had been narrating most of the episode, and we just got this one line at the very end. We've seen all these different ways that they're kind of playing with Conrad's point of view and showing us what he's thinking about. There are more important chapters in the book that explain how he's feeling and kind of navigating this whole wedding situation. I'm just really hoping that episode 5 is not the last time that we hear from him.
I promise this is the last part 3 of my rapid fire thoughts of episode 5 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. This was a perfect episode until we heard the words, "Honey, I'm home." I need you to go back to where you came from. I need you to be at the loft tonight. Anyway, Belly tells Jared that she got these peaches, which we know she loved. Spiritual experience for Belly. He's like, yeah, do you have any strawberries? This man cannot read a room. Just trying to show us that they're just not compatible, even in little things. He says, "You can't take my fries, you thief." Intentional language. I learned it earlier in the episode when Belly talks about how Jeremiah stole that stamp, that precious rare stamp of his, and Conrad cried. I just think the language is interesting with this. Jeremiah caught them being shady with their numbers. I mentioned this in another part. One, ironic that this man is in $20,750 worth of debt after insisting on that cake. This man's handling your numbers, Adam, but I wonder if we are gonna see something with this play out later on. I don't know if Cuppa was twice. I don't know. Nail gun line. The nail gun line. It was different, but I loved it. Earlier, Belly said in the car with Conrad that all she cared about was making a commitment in front of the people that they love, and now it's at the country club. Perfect. Just what she wanted. Jared once again just dismissing Belly's feelings of not wanting to have the wedding at the club with his business associates. Jared, you're not even on payroll. Master manipulator once again. Belly is sacrificing what she wants to appease him. Jeremiah, your dad's hard on you because you are acting like a loser. Oh, and Kaylee's planning it. Okay. I can't wait for Conrad to know that Kaylee's coming, see her there, and for Laurel to also see Laurel throw some hands. I can't wait for them to look for an apartment and for that scene where Jeremiah doesn't understand how credit scores work. Also saying that she wants to stay with Jeremiah for a couple days after he says like something about like, oh, you've been here with my brother. Maybe if you only knew it wasn't a punishment for her to be here with your brother. Although we don't have Belly's inner dialogue, we know that that day stirred something in her because she's like, yeah, I'll come stay with you. She's just suppressing her feelings for Conrad and thinks that that probably is the wise choice. Belly and Jared dancing on the dock. Why do they have no chemistry? Why was that so awkward? I mean, it has to be intentional. I don't want to blame the actors. They do have friend chemistry, but like they have no chemistry. Like it was uncomfortable. I'm choosing to believe that that was intentional. Also, this episode being called Last Dance, that better be the last dance Jenny's referring to. I don't want to see that again. And we see the bookend of this episode and it's a picture of Conrad looking out toward the dock, thinking about Belly, thinking about his regrets and his feelings for her. Fireworks are going off in the reflection of his window. So this episode starts with electricity, the thunderbolt analogy, and then it ends with this picture of fireworks going off in Conrad's window. Mwah. I love this episode. I think it was the best of the season so far. Possibly my favorite in the whole series. You know what you guys thought?